Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Sunday night here for the Late Night Talk Show. This is our ninth episode already, and we have just completed round 7 in Canada. As always, Jono is joined alongside me for tonight's show. Jono, how you doing?
I'm doing really good, thanks, Nick. How are you doing?
Yes, not too bad, not too bad. Good to be here, and obviously lots of things to discuss. Canada, a good track for you in the past. You've won there at F1 TS Hub, and one of your greatest battles with some of F1 TS Hub's greatest.
Yeah, I've watched Odems, I believe, did the compilation video of season 8, which is over on the TS Hub YouTube channel last week, and it did bring back some great memories. Canada, I think it's a really fun circuit to drive, and it also delivers, I think, pretty much the best racing probably of anywhere we go on the calendar. We always get loads of wheel-to-wheel action, and yeah, I think it's a favourite with the drivers and with the spectators as well, to be honest.
I think consistently it delivers good races, and obviously it's quite close between the tires are obviously the softest, and it really gives a different dynamic with the weather changing. So it's just one of those races that when we arrive there on a Friday night, we're in for some treats.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's plenty of opportunities as well with strategy, overtaking. You've got lots of obviously high speed and those tricky chicanes to try and negotiate as well. And obviously the Wall of Champions at the end of the lap. So delivers a bit of everything. And yeah, it's I hope it stays on the calendar. You never know these days with the classic track sort of dropping off slowly, but let's hope Canada is here for a long time to come.
And we had last week on the talk show from the Pinnacle tier, Sam, Matt from the Ferrari side, and then Farth and also Reflo from the Mercedes side. And we found it really interesting, didn't we, Jono, that the dynamic between them, and they were also confident that they were going to beat each other. But one of them, they can't both come out on top. One of them's got to come second.
Yeah, they were both full of confidence, weren't they? Sam and Reflow particularly, but the two teams combined as well. They were just full of confidence. There was no doubt in their mind, outwardly at least, that they're going to win it. I think surely inwardly they both can't be that confident. I mean, they both know each other's quick, and it's already ebbed and flowed in the opening rounds. So yeah, they were both talking it up, weren't they? And we found it really, really fascinating. And yeah, it just makes things even more interesting. I think I was definitely watching the race on Friday with that in the back of my mind and knowing just how much they all want to win.
Yeah, we'll come to the Pinnacle race in a minute. We are going to get two drivers in tonight from the podium tier. So we're going to have championship leader Dane Starr, who's won 5 races out of 7. Red Bull have won 7 out of 7. And then we're also going to get Primeval Rex, who races in the podium tier and then commentates with Jack in the prestige tier. So it'll be interesting to get his dynamic, Jono, from his thoughts, obviously, racing and commentating. But we'll come to that in a minute. First, the podium tier. Qualifying, if we head over to there, just after 20 minutes on the stream. Dane Star,
Yeah, I got
another pole position for him. Buffy Dweller getting a penalty there, so that one of his challengers obviously dropped down the order. But Dane Star is just, you were just saying now, he looks unbeatable, doesn't he?
Yeah, you have to say, he does look unbeatable. Can't literally win them all, but if he doesn't win them, he comes close. And I think if the races go smoothly for him, he's the quickest driver right there in that tier at the moment, and it's definitely his to lose. He's got a fair margin there of nearly half a second by the look of it in qualifying again, around a pretty short lap time of Canada as well. So pretty impressive, and yeah, another pole position to add to his list.
And it didn't all go his way off the start. This has been in the last few races with the podium tier. There's been the first half of the race is really good. It sets itself up that it's going to be a fantastic finish. Who's going to win? Who's going to finish on the podium? And then it just kind of dwindles out. And myself and Sean are obviously finding stuff to talk about. But Dane Star, a shocking start, one of the worst starts I've seen any race this season across all of our tiers. Full wet conditions, all the drivers started in, but they, other than Razor, they all made it through pretty cleanly. But what did you make of his start?
Yeah, Daystar looked like he was slow away from the lights, didn't he? The lights went out and he was left waiting a while. So it was a bit tricky to see on the stream because we're all sort of left waiting as the lights go out for us watching on the stream, but all the drivers sit there for another couple of seconds afterwards. So we often get this slightly weird odd start. It's difficult to tell who's doing what. But definitely Daystar was left left sitting there, and he's luckily for him, obviously at Canada, it's a very short run down to turn one, so he wasn't punished too much initially, at least. If he'd done that at, at Monza or somewhere like that, he could have been really, really struggling.
All right, now, Jono, the top three, Jonut, Joris, and Danestar, I believe, yeah, so Danestar in second. As they come into turn 5, I want you to talk me through this one. Full wet conditions, they haven't, obviously, qualifying was dry, so they don't know what the cars can be like. Riding on board with Jonas, he taps the wall, and then he goes deep, and all three touch each other's rear wheel with their front, and all three of them slide. Danestar comes off worst, Joric continues in the lead, and Jonas continues to second place. Do you think that was just the unknown conditions and the mold trying to just go a little bit too deep?
Yeah, I think perhaps they all just got a little bit caught out, and each all breaking, equivalent to each other, sent them all a little bit deep. As you say, Jonas touched the wall beforehand, then he had the inside line and came steaming into that corner a little bit. Perhaps frightened the others into giving a bit more space and breaking a bit deeper themselves as well. But it all did get a little bit messy, and obviously, yeah, we had Danestar off the track and having to rejoin down in whatever it was, fifth or sixth position. So it wasn't ideal, and it did have to, give them a little bit of work to do, didn't it, from there to move back towards the front.
Yeah, and then after that, it was basically enjoyment of watching the Red Bulls come through the field. Gaza obviously crashed out in qualifying, so he'll be disappointed with that. Crashed out coming out on the exit, the hairpin, so it was quite a low speed one. But then he was able to fight through the field. He looked good in those wet conditions, nailing his braking points. His teammate Danestar back from fifth, eventually up to first position. Jura again, not really having that, being able to go 100% all the way. He can get himself in the position where he can win the race, but isn't quite able to execute it that final stage. What do you put that down to? Because he did it. He booked in Monaco. Obviously, he was in the net lead and he did the pit stop, and then he got damage after his pit stop, and he threw it away.
Yeah, it just seems to not be able to quite get it all together, does he? As you say, a few strategy errors when he's had really good pace and the strategy hasn't worked out for him, or he's had little incidents, as you say, bits of damage. We're all sort of waiting, I think. We've got a fair chunk into the season now, 7 rounds down, for him to, get on top of those issues. And if he can, then he can definitely win races. But yeah, he's just got those little things holding him back at the moment. But I think, as he just competes and competes in more rounds, he will iron them out and get on top of them.
Alrighty, as the race went on, everyone decided to pretty much take a pit stop, except for Jamie. He carried on, and then eventually switched over onto the intermediate tires. There were quite a few gaps in between, where he wasn't that threatened from behind, so he gave it a chance. But he was also losing a lot of time to Gaza, who was in front of him at that stage. But one less stop than the rest, and I believe he didn't get a penalty either. So dry conditions maybe could have been more for Jamie.
Yeah, I think he mentioned that he thinks he could have done a fair bit better in the dry. He's not that confident in the wet, but if you're not that confident, you don't have the ultimate pace. That's all you can do. He did the different strategy to the others, and didn't get any penalties, which around Canada is crucial. And we saw in all the tiers people picking up penalties. So if you can keep it clean and get to the end, you're going to get good points, and that's what Jamie managed to do.
So Danestar taking the win ahead of Jonas and Jorah on the podium. Gaza recovered to fourth. Jamie made up top 5. D-Boy Dan finished in 6th position. Alrighty, head over to our pinnacle tier. Jonah, when I watched this one back, I was so jealous that you got to commentate on this, because it was such a good race. Like the top 5, all race long. They finished, I think, Sam finished 3 seconds behind Reflow. Don Call with his strategy, what could have been if he didn't have that wing damage, started on pole. Don Call, he's obviously dominated Monaco. Spain in this race, he started on the quickest tyre and went for the 2-stop, but hasn't really worked out for him.
Yeah, tyre choice cost him any chance to the win. Even without the damage, it was clear that already that strategy was not going to deliver the victory for him. The Hypersoft just fell off way too quick, overheating rear tyres, combined with wear, and he was just falling back quite rapidly after just a couple of laps. So he's obviously got the pace for sure, but perhaps just not quite got the race strategy at the moment to be able to obviously take the victory. Or he did at Monaco, of course, but at the other circuits so far, it hasn't quite come through for him, but he's obviously there or thereabouts. He's got the pace to take it to the Ferraris and the Mercedes for the rest of the season for sure.
Yeah, and qualifying in this tier again, so close. If you forget the gap from first to second, all the way from the second, all the way down to 15th place, just a second separating 13 drivers. It's just crazy to see how close this qualifying is, and I think these drivers are enjoying having to, not make mistakes.
Yes, what you want to see. You want to be pushed and you want to have people to race, and everyone in the league has got that. You cannot deny that. And it carried through to the race, didn't it, where we saw battles everywhere. So, yeah, qualifying is crucial. And, yeah, with everybody being so evenly matched, you've got to absolutely nail your lap.
Yeah, off the line. Obviously, Don Cole breaking in slightly earlier. One Mercedes trying to go one side, the Ferrari going the others, and those four, kind of developed into their own race. But behind them, absolute carnage, and we know this incidents in the stewards and this tier. They've got to sort this out because up to this point, there hasn't really been any big spinners. They're all still within DRS. As soon as they hit turn 5 on the stream, it's really hard to see who causes it. But we know it is in the steward's office, and we think it could be Scorpion, based on his view. And it's just a knock-on effect, and it had so much effect on everyone's races. And being that there was no safety car, it ruins it for a lot of these drivers who were just minding their own business. But at the same time, you step onto track, and that's part of the risk you take.
Yeah, it can always happen, can't it? It's always a shame when you get past the first couple of corners, you think, we've all got away with this and we're going to see a good race. Obviously, we still saw a good race, but just one mistake. As you say, it's not dirty driving from the whole field or anything like that, but one perhaps silly move from a driver. I've just had a look at Scorpion's footage. He's definitely involved in some way, but I haven't had a good look at it all yet. But yeah, one incident between Scorpion and Lawrence appears to have just caused a knock-on effect for everybody behind them. And yeah, it was just reminiscent of Baku, isn't it? When we had more destruction at the start of the race, and it is a real shame for everybody who's obviously put in all the practice. But it's racing, and on a day like that, one error can cause chaos if you're unlucky.
Yeah, and SF Chopper coming off worse out of that, retiring, and then later on in the lap, Heskey Time spinning out of the final corner. He's had a really up and down season. I think he just needs to look maybe for some consistency. But to give you guys a little insight, he was actually on qualifying night, Jono, he was the top guy in this tier. So he definitely should be up there fighting for these positions. But as the race went on, it was a battle of how quickly can we get past Don Cool on those Hypersoft tires. Reflo doing an excellent job, I thought, all race negotiating any traffic that he had to get through. And the Ferraris, I couldn't tell, were they working together? Were they costing each other time? It was really hard to, were they battling? We know last week on the talk show, Matt's happy to play a second driver, but it didn't look like that at some points throughout the race.
Yeah, I think for the majority, I think they were working together. They were using the DRS pretty well. But at the same time, it didn't really allow them to close the gap down to Reflow, did it? So whether they were working together or not, Reflow had the answer and had the pace to hold on.
And that was important for Reflow after two results, poor results. He was able to bounce back like that with a win, and a controlled win, I'd say.
Yeah, it was well under control, and it was cool all race long. And as we know from the talk show last week, he wasn't rattled at all by having the couple of bad results. And he showed that at Canada, came out and did what he does best, and yeah, took a pretty comfortable victory in the end. They kept him reasonably close, but I think he had it under control.
Alrighty, now after the pit stops, when the Ferraris were passing Matt Your Daddy, I do have to say, and I never take favourites, Jono, but I feel so sorry for Matt Your Daddy. And I know he messaged me in the week. He's not, happy because he starts on the slower compound. He works his way up to the podium positions, and then something happens where he's involved in an incident. And I think at least 3 times this season, the other person's been penalised in the stewards, but nothing seems to change for him. He's just got to keep his head up, doesn't he?
Yeah, there's nothing else you can do, is there? I think I mentioned it on commentary on Friday night that he just doesn't seem to have the run of the luck at all at the moment, despite having good pace, obviously. And it was the same again here. I think he got tangled up with one of the Ferraris and ended up getting wing damage. And yeah, just things keep happening. And as you say, it's not his fault. The other guy's usually getting penalised for it. But yeah, sometimes you think, what have I got to do? But you've just got to keep going, and eventually you've just got to hope and trust that your luck will change. And it does always change eventually. But yeah, he's definitely due a good race.
Now, talk to me about this six-car battle, John. Pepsi Gamer, Lawrence, TK, CSS, White Fountain, Jaw, and Scorpion exiting the hairpin. CSS was obviously on old tires. Do you think he was fighting it too hard?
I think actually for a lot of the battle, which was amazing, I'm just watching it back again now, and it is incredible. If you don't watch the whole race, just go and watch that battle because it was brilliant. But for a lot of it, CSS was defending pretty well, I think, hard but fair. But at the end, his tyres fell off. He was on really, really old tyres compared with those behind him. And at that point, I think he was overstepping the mark. He was too aggressive, and it did lead to, to all that chaos kicking off in the end, which is a real shame because he put in a good drive up until that point. But yeah, I think it was contact with Jaw at the end that ended the battle for us, which was a shame.
But as a driver's point of view, John, if you put yourself inside his helmet, you haven't scored points all season, and you're in the points for the first time. You obviously want to do everything you can to stay in that position.
In the end, though, it cost him any hope of points because he chucked it away, lost, and fell right down the field. I think he may have still had a chance of getting ninth or 10th if he'd have just defended a bit more fairly and perhaps let drivers go and try and get onto the toe. But in the end, it came to nothing, and I think he's ended up in the steward's office for it as well now. So yeah, you can't blame him for, I guess, on one hand, for just desperately trying to hold on to that position. He was looking in at fifth place at one point. So, but you cannot just put your car anywhere. You've got to admit at some point defeat if the guy behind you is much, much quicker and gets a good run.
Alrighty, and obviously Reflow winning, Sam and Matt finishing on the podium. Farth in the other Mercedes retiring, so he said afterwards the Ferraris are going to gain some more points, and he was right. Indeed, they have. But Cloudy Balloons, good result for him after a poor start to his season, finishing in fourth position. He's up for the Driver of the Day vote over on Twitter at F1TS Hub. But overall, good race. John, they must be watching your highlight videos because every single driver got themselves a penalty. But yeah, onto the prestige tier. Qualifying, intermediate conditions, and what I want to ask you, Jono, is in this short qualifying session, obviously the tire you qualify on is the tire you start on. So it changes the dynamic of the race so much when it's a wet qualifying because it gives the free selection for the race.
Yeah, it does. It takes the pressure off the strategy quite a bit. Especially if you plan on running the Hypersoft, obviously it makes a big, big difference. But either way, it just opens up the strategy for all the drivers. But it does put you all in the same situation at the end of the day. So although it makes it easier for your strategy, it makes it equally easy for everyone else. So I guess it balances things out, for everybody really.
1.2 covering the top 14. So again, another competitive qualifying session. And then we knew on the formation lap it was either going to be the ultras or the softs. So it was a run of two races for these drivers. But what I found most impressive, and we haven't always had this in the top tier because big egos come with big personalities, and they've often found themselves not the cleanest tier in previous seasons. But after the first lap, there was no one. And if you continue on to even say 4 laps in, 10 laps in, everyone's still there. No one's come into the pits, I think, other than VSR Josh. So in that sense, it's they're having some racing and they're able to either deal with damage, wing damage, or keep it somewhat clean in the opening stint that the Pinnacle tier hasn't been able to do perhaps this season.
Yeah, I agree, and they were able to make the strategy, almost all of them, work well. And surprising that guys were carrying on with a bit of wing damage, as you say, and still able to keep with the driver in front and still make their strategy work. I think part of that is because Canada obviously not too many corners and quite a few chicanes, so you can sort of cope with the front wing damage a little bit easier than you can at other circuits. And the slipstream effect big as well. So if you are tucked in behind another car, you can carry damage and perhaps having a slightly slower car here better than you can at some other tracks.
Alrighty, and there is no highlight to this race. because it's the entire race. There's just overtaking going on all throughout the field, battling going on. Obviously, some of it perhaps going to end up in the steward's office, but it was just all the way through. And again, it's these drivers that are starting outside the top 10, and I mean, just seeing there Black Mamba and Blizzard, and then later in the race they came together again. And it's just that some of the moves from these guys, they're going into it. One of them's coming out, the other one isn't.
Yeah, definitely. Some of the moves were a little bit silly, I think, to be honest. I mean, surprisingly, Blizzard, I don't think he really had the pace particularly at this race. I think he was struggling from early on to match the pace of the top guys. I know Odem's made his way through, and I think, and a few others. But yeah, then he got tangled up with Black Mamba, I think 3 times, one early on, and then another 2 times later as well. And the moves from some are just a bit too aggressive, I think. You can't just expect to come through the second you meet the car in front. You have to actually earn your way by. And I think maybe a few of the guys are forgetting that slightly in the last couple of races.
And there isn't a point that I can click as I run through this stream where there isn't two cars nose to tail or side by side. So in that sense, it's definitely a good race to watch. Interestingly, I'd say on Friday the least enjoyable race to watch as a whole was the podium tier, but I think we hit 34 viewers, and then as the night went on, the viewers went less. So maybe these guys at the top, maybe they just don't have too many fans. But talk to me about this incident at the end, Jono, because Louis, he got pole position. He thought he didn't have to. He didn't walk away with this race, did he? This wasn't an easy time. No, it comes down the inside into chicane, and it just looks like Louis taps him to the inside wall, and he was unlucky to lose a tyre. But lap 33 out of 35, or they were just about to start the penultimate lap. How do you come back from like that, and then how do you deal with the anger and the frustration that must be, inside him when something like that happens?
Yeah, it's not easy at all, and for it to be so late on in the race is a real shame. But I think it was a self-inflicted DNF. He just tried to, tuck right in behind Noak through that chicane, and lost it on traction on the curb and round into the wall it went. We've seen it happen to other drivers before, and we'll see it again. But I mean, all you can take away is that he had great pace, didn't he? He was battling for the win all the way through, and we've seen him coming into his own quite a bit lately, and he often pulls out a good strategy as well, Lewis. So, all is lost in that race, but all is certainly not lost in his hopes for the remainder of the championship. He's just got to get back on with it next week and try and stick it on pole and win again.
Yeah, exactly. Bounce back. That's the best way to deal with a poor result like that. But lots of penalties from even the top drivers. At F1 TS Hub, Noak takes the win, Julian second. VSR Francis on his return to league takes third position, so a good result for him. Black Mamba fourth, VSR Joss recovered after that poor start to fifth position. And then you've got obviously as the results go on. But Jono, let's get some drivers in. We've got Danestar and Primeval Rex from the podium tier. Give me a second, guys, and I will get him in the chat now. Alrighty, whilst we wait for them to join, Jono Canada, would you say what would you say is your favourite race of the Pinnacle tier that you've commentated on so far this season?
I think Canada's, I mean, it's obviously the freshest in my mind, but it's got to be up there. I just think that battle, obviously, it ended in tears in the end, but for so long, it was absolutely intense. Me and Kieran didn't know who to watch. There were 6 drivers, and whichever one you flicked to on the cameras, they were side by side with somebody else for lap after lap. So as a battle, I think that was absolutely awesome. And it's also nice to watch drivers who perhaps aren't always winning the races and always on the stream battling it out as well. It just shows that throughout the field, everybody is giving it their all. Everyone's fighting for position. Not everybody can win, but everybody can battle and show what they can do. And that's what those guys did for that section of the race. It was just great.
Yeah, and also of course with a track like Canada, as you mentioned before, it really favours some close racing, but it just shows you as well how close the tiers are, which means when we do our qualifying night and stuff like that, or when we add new drivers, it really adds to the competitiveness, which is fantastic. But podium tier, welcome Rex and welcome Dane Star. All right, Dane Star, we'll start with you. 5 wins out of 7. Red Bull 7 wins out of 7. I saw you were on F1 earlier today. It's becoming a bit too easy for you, this, isn't it? You and your team.
Yeah, really enjoying it at the moment. Me and Gazman winning all the races, win third season. It's really enjoying it so far.
And how is it? Obviously with Gaza, do you speak to each other in the chat during the races? And obviously your team's well leading the constructors. So do you see that you're more focused on the drivers and more relaxed about the constructors championship?
I like to think about both constructors and drivers. Obviously, it'd be great to win the drivers, but I'm a team player. I like to go for the constructors as well. Just confirm that as well. Don't want to slack.
Awesome. And Rex, coming to you, mate. Not been the best season so far. You've been there for all of the races, excluding Canada. You've had 4 DNFs. You scored 10 points in China, which is your best result to date. What do you make of your season so far? How's it gone for you?
It's been fun. I don't know whether the results have been there. But yeah, you messaged me after Azerbaijan, and you were like, if you know, you don't be upset about your race. I don't get upset about the racing anymore. I don't really get upset by it. I was last season, but this season, there's such good quality people in the podiums here, that I can't compete. And then sometimes, yes, I do DNF, and it sucks, but I take every race that comes, and I've really enjoyed my racing this season.
Awesome stuff. And obviously China, I imagine, being your standout race so far.
Bittersweet, China, bittersweet. I could have got the podium, but I made a mistake going into the last bit of the circuit, and obviously was able to hang on to fourth, but got demoted to fifth due to a penalty at the start of the race. But it's all good. It's good fun, and I really enjoyed that race.
Awesome stuff. And obviously you've taken on a new role commentating with Jack in our prestige top tier this season. You guys come in the commentators chat every week, just gasping for air because you're really enjoying it and the drivers are really putting on battles from lap 1 to the last lap every week.
Yeah, there's no word to describe what happens. It's always fun as a commentator when you can't preempt who's going to win. I think that's one of the glorious things we have in the podiums here, the procedure, sorry, is that we don't know who's going to win. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what the top 10 is going to be. In Canada, we had like MLA and Black Mamba towards the bottom at one stage. We were like, what's going on here? We didn't think that was going to happen, so we never know what's going to happen. It's always good fun.
Awesome stuff. And Danestar, back to you. We spoke to Gaza in the talk show, I think, a few weeks ago. Australia was a close battle between you two. We were on commentary, myself and Shaw, we were gritting our teeth a little bit because we wondered if it was going to end in an incident. But he was obviously quicker on those super soft tires, I think it was. But did you enjoy that you were able to have such a clean and close battle with him?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed having a good battle with my teammate Gaz and Jonas. It was really good fun till the end of the race. A good one too as well, which was a 1-3, but yeah.
Awesome. And obviously, Danestar, I'd like to say that your pace has increased from last season quite a bit. What do you put that down to? Just, I think I said in on the forum once that you didn't start the season the gap that you have now. You've created that through presumably hard work.
Yeah. Since qualifying night, I know I had a bad qualifying night, so I just wanted to get down and show my true pace. So I just really practiced a lot around these tracks, and it seems to be paying off. So yeah. Really.
Right, a couple of questions for you coming in from some of the viewers. Question from Sam, who's leading the championship in the pinnacle tier. Where do you think you'd rank up against those guys if you were to compete in the middle tier?
But maybe mid table, maybe. I think.
Okay, and another question for you as well. If the opportunity to move up a tier becomes available, would you take it?
I want to win the championship in the podium tier first. Then I'll move up to pinnacle. I'd enjoy that.
Okie dokie. All right, there you go. Rex, coming back to you. With obviously 7 races now done, you've taken part of all of them, which is fantastic to see. Committed to the league with your commentary. If you had to sum up F1 TS Hub in a few words, what would you say about it?
Spectacular, stressful, and I think I'm going to go with beautiful. I think the entire community is interesting because you never really get that with other leagues. You know, we have the media day, we have commentary, we have this, we have great personalities in our tier like Odems that people know and they can take the mick out of and all that kind of jazz. So it's fantastic. I love the feeling of it. I love being here. I love racing here. I love commentating here. It's just great to be a part of.
Awesome. Jono, do you have some questions for the boys?
Yeah, I mean, Deinster, first, obviously, you've had a great start to the season, and if you're not winning, then your teammates winning, so it's all smiles at Red Bull at the moment. Is the pressure gone off a bit that you sort of know going to the races now that you're going to have the pace to at least compete for the win, if not actually take the win? Are you going in absolutely full of confidence to every race?
I like to go in with confidence, but I can never be 100% sure on how the race is going to end. But I don't really like to ease off that much. But yeah, it is really good knowing that my teammate is really quick as well. So yeah, really good.
Good stuff. And Rex, obviously, commentating as well this season. Like, does it give you a slightly different perspective when it actually comes to then jumping in the car yourself and racing the next week, watching those stupidly fast guys race around? You know, have you picked anything slightly different up from viewing it from that side rather than in the car? And do you watch their race after and think, wow, I wish I'd have run that strategy or done something a little bit different?
I wish I could say I did, but unfortunately, my results haven't reflected that. But no, I always find it interesting to see what those top guys do. That they bewilder me. They are spectacular, but I haven't really picked that in my own racing. Unfortunately, I just don't think I'm good enough at this point to even pick anything up from them. I think they're so good that anything they do is beyond my ability at the minute. So I think I just love watching them race. I get so confused about how they can go that fast, but I love watching it.
Awesome stuff. Dainstar, earlier in the season, can remember after which race you came under fire a little bit from a couple of drivers after saying you were going to start from the back. And what did you make of that? I presume obviously it wasn't meant in the way that it was taken. But what did you make of that whole kind of incident and also the maybe the opinion of some drivers that you shouldn't be in that tier? What would you say to them?
I just say that's the first thing was a joke taken out. I guess it was taken out of context, but I didn't want to sound cocky or anything. Just like a light-hearted joke on my end. And yeah, maybe if people think I am too quick for this test, just because I'm like practicing a lot and like a very very lot since I have like a lot of time. So yeah, just been practicing a lot.
Awesome stuff. Rex, you're only a third of the way through the season. The results haven't been there, but there's no reason why you can't turn it around.
Absolutely not. Obviously, I don't want to, complain and moan about what happened last season. But obviously, last season having a teammate like Reflow that did really, really well, and that made in ways without coming across as idiotic. That made me look sort of better because we were up on the constructors. That was mostly as well. Whereas this year it's all been me by myself because I still talk to Reflow and all that and do practice. But it's been a very difficult dynamic for me, and I think coming over that in the first part of the season has been tough because obviously last season I talked to a floating in races. This year it's all been by myself. It's been very different, and I'm very weird. I like to talk to myself during the race or put some music on. I can't focus just by listening to the races. I get myself a little bit overstressed. So I always like to, it's been difficult to overcome this hurdle in the first part of the season, but there's no reason why I can't come back next half the season, hopefully challenge Dainster, who has been absolutely spectacular so far, may I say. It's been a pleasure being on the same racetrack as him.
Jono, do you have a final question for them both?
Just both drivers, I guess. Any one who stands out to you as a sort of rival in the field, or do you get on with everyone equally in the tier? And also, do you have any goals to achieve for the end of the season? I guess for Danestar, it's to win both titles the way it's going. But for Rex, especially, do you have any particular aims or ways you're going to be able to move forward as we come, to the second part of the season?
Rivals-wise, I'm going to say someone that isn't in my tier. I think Flo will always be my best F1 tier sub-friend and rival. Wherever he goes, even though he's so much better than me, I'm never going to let him know that he is so much better than me to his face. But when it comes to goals, I'd love a win. I think a lot of people will laugh at the fact that I say I want to win, but it's always possible, and I want to win. I want to. I just want to make myself. I want to prove myself that I do have the pace. And obviously this didn't happen, but in Australia I had the time on the Delta to get pole, and I invalidated the lap. So I know that on some circuits I do have the pace. I just need to find it, get back in the groove, and just attack the circuits.
How about yourself, Daystar? Same question.
Yeah, my rivals obviously it's gonna be my teammate Jonas Jarrett, and I've been practicing a lot with D-Boy Dan, and he's really good around certain tracks like Austria and Singapore. So yeah, it's really like a lot of drivers in the field I like to rival myself with, and yeah, I guess my goal is to win the double.
What question for you, Daystar? How did you find Monaco? Because it really wasn't your day that day, and also being behind Buffy Dweller, did you get a sense that I felt in the commentary box that no matter what you tried, he wasn't letting you through?
Yeah, obviously, because I have a real struggle with tires overheating and stuff, so that's how I really lost the lead, really. And Jarrett was really good around there as well. And when I was behind Buffy Dweller, yeah, I think you could see in my driving, I was quite frustrated how I couldn't get past him, but that was all down to his really good defending. So yeah.
And do you think all the incident in the tunnel, was it all within the rules? Do you think?
I think it was a little aggressive on my end, but just frustrated, and I think it was just a bit over aggressive on my end, but that was just me frustrated of his good defending.
Awesome. Two final questions for you. Would you relish the challenge of more drivers, quicker drivers coming in to the podium tier, your pace or slightly higher or slightly below your pace to really mix things up for wins and podiums?
Oops. I'd love a good challenge. Yeah, see more drivers in, give a fight, have a good fight at the top with everyone. That would be really good entertainment wise.
Awesome. And last question, over the next few tracks coming up, obviously France never had a league race round there. At F1 TS Hub being new, what tracks are you looking forward to, and what tracks do you think you might struggle at a little bit?
I think I'm gonna struggle at France due to tires overheating, but after France, like next few rounds till Hungary, I think I'm pretty good around those tracks. So it'll be very interesting indeed.
Awesome. And Rex, question to you: if you had to pick out weaknesses that you want to work on over the next say third of the season, what would you say they are, and how do you think you can conquer them?
Well, again, I'm going to mention my mate Flo. He gave me a little bit of a talking to the past week, He essentially said that I'm just not consistent enough, and I have to agree. I think for me, it's a big issue of getting nervous because I'm always very nervous about what people think of me and my driving, and obviously that's been talked about by the drivers in not such positive ways in the past, which has affected me personally. And so then I go into races feeling a bit nervous that, people think I'm just going to knock them out, whatever. So I think it's more like a mental thing. I just need to, if people don't like me, they don't like me, and just get over that more than anything that's wrong with my driving, because I think I do have the pace. It's just having that mental block move out of the way.
Yeah, I think interestingly from driving myself, it's you have to push yourself to the limit, but you have to know what that limit is. So in terms of braking, if you're coming into a corner, you have to push. If you're trying to overtake someone, you push your braking to the limit. And I think John will agree with this, but you can't go over that limit. But I think every driver has to take some responsibility that when you go out onto the racetrack, when the lights go out, there is a chance that there will be an incident and it's not your fault. And I think you're talking about last season in Austin, if I remember correctly, where you came under fire with a few drivers. But John will tell you himself, as a double world champion, you have bad races and you make mistakes and you hit people and you damage your wing, and no one should go out on the racetrack if they don't expect that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Incidents can happen to absolutely anybody, and got to try and drive without fear as much as you possibly can. And I think if you drive with fear around other cars as well, I know other drivers have had this issue. If you drive with fear, you're actually more likely for something is going to go wrong. You overthink it in the braking zones and what have you. So you've just got to try and drive without fear as much as you can, and try and enjoy your racing as well. That's the main thing. It is easy to get really nervous. But if you can get the nerves under control, it's definitely a big help, I think. And knowing the limit, as Nick says, is important as well. If somebody's faster than you, I think knowing they're faster sometimes and letting them go off into the distance is the right thing to do, rather than overdrive the car, make mistakes, crash out or whatever. So yeah, I think there's lots of stuff that just comes with doing loads of races, to be honest.
I think with experience and the more you're fighting, even further up the grid, John will tell you in season 4 himself and Ermi, what was separated by half of the point, and the last race was double points. So I remember Ermi, he'd already won 2 titles, and he said to me he was literally shaking in qualifying. So even the best drivers still get nervous. I'm sure Danestar still has a few butterflies when he's on his formation lap, and I bet he was even more worried than his start in Canada.
Yeah, definitely.
So there we go. All right. Well, we're going to leave it there. Thanks both of you for popping in and joining us. Best of luck next week in France, and of course, Rex, best of luck for the prestige tier commentary next week as well. Jono, thank you again for joining me in the commentary box. Next week, we're hoping to get all 3 commentators in, one from each tier. Can't confirm it just yet. The week after, we've also lined up Boogster will be joining us from the prestige tier, so that's on the 23rd. But hopefully next Sunday we can get Kieran from the Pinnacle, Jack from the prestige, and Sean from the podium tier in, and we can have a chat to the commentators, because I think that'll be a slightly different dynamic, and get their thoughts. Jono, will be interesting.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I know all the commentators after the races are usually really buzzing about what they've just viewed. So yeah, it'd be good to get the views of everybody. So yeah, should be good next Friday. Fingers crossed.
Awesome. Well, we'll leave it there. Thank you everyone for joining us. It's been a pleasure as always. And I look forward to next week, the races in France. Our podium tier at 7 p.m, Pinnacle tier at 8 p.m, Prestige tier at 9 p.m, all live with commentary. Best of luck to yourselves and all the drivers taking part. And we will be back next week for the late night talk show, same time on Sunday night. Cheers, guys.